Star Wars galaxy is filled with a diverse array of species, each with its own unique characteristics, cultures, and abilities. But there's one species that honestly has one of the craziest histories in Star Wars. And before Jedi Survivor, we only had a few references, but now we know even more about the Gendai. Welcome to Star Wars Uplink. When I saw that they had a Gendai in Jedi Survivor in the trailers, I was mind blown. The Gendai were very, very rare. I think we saw them in SWTOR. We saw them in the comics. We saw them in Legends mostly. And I think there's only one mention of them in the Clone Wars. A guy named Durge. And these things are insane. I saw them, obviously, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And then I dug deep and I found a crap ton of really interesting facts when it comes to the Gendai. One, they're almost immortal. And I'm going to get into how you would actually defeat them in lore at the end of the video. But I want to lay this out here. They are very rare species. Honestly, they are extremely, extremely, extremely rare. And they've specifically built their lives to make sure that they aren't even perceived. If you do even see one, there's only a few ways that you can tell that they're Gendai, mostly because they wear armor, and that armor is very specific in terms of its reason. Gendai are a mass of muscles that just flop around, and a brain and their head. The most recognizable part of them is their head, and it's this formless shape. Most of them wear the armor to give them shape, to use the muscles so they're not just flopping around. They have very sharp teeth and are incredibly strong. And they regenerate. They're able to regenerate all but their brain. And if you chop off their arm, they can grow it within a matter of hours. While in general, the Gendai were not evil, they just are perceived as evil. Most of the population was made up of philosophers. And because of their old age, they eventually suffered from mental deterioration. But there are a few examples of some very evil Gendai, like Durge. He was active during the Clone Wars between the Confederacy and the Republic, and was so insane by the end of the war that he, quote, possessed an unequivocal bloodlust and was responsible for the slaughter of Gungan colonists and a crap ton of Jedi Order members. Now we get to the part of how the heck do you stop this unstoppable beast? They have regenerative powers. They're almost invincible. You can chop off all their arms, you can chop off their legs, their head, all that stuff. They will eventually rebuild. But if they do sustain enough damage, their biology allows them to enter this meditative state and just shuts down as it slowly rebuilds itself. From what we can see, too, they lived for 4,000 to over 7,000 years, and most of the times that we see them die is because they've just gone insane, like Durge, and were killed. There aren't many examples of this, so we can't actually say how long they actually live. But in Jedi Survivor, Ravis was in the Old Republic and is still rocking and rolling as we get into 9 BBY in Jedi Survivor, which is crazy to think about. But how do you actually kill one of these guys? The Gendai, they're basically Deadpool. So what you can do, the only thing that cannot be regenerated is their brain. So you can keep on giving them damage, keep on slicing different bits and pieces of them, and they will eventually start to wear down. Once they are worn down, you can chop off their head, destroy their brain, and that kills them. The other way, which is how Durge died, he was sent into a literal sun and was destroyed, eviscerated by the sun's heat. Complete, entire biological destruction. Those are the two options that you have if you face a Gendai. Just insane how this species is so powerful in Star Wars. But they rarely reproduce, and they have an exceptionally low birth rate from what we're told too. So that is kind of what we see. But in general, their population, besides the bounty hunters, were philosophers, and eventually they would mentally deteriorate because that was something that they did not regenerate throughout that time span. Eventually, they would just go insane. But with all that to say, the Gendai are insanely overpowered. And honestly, it's crazy to see them in canon. Most of the stuff that we saw them were in Legends, and to bring them really back into the fray with Ravis, super exciting. Let me know in the comments below if you knew these facts about the Gendai. And as always, may the Force be with you. Check out our podcast. We'll see you next time.